Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming over here. I know y'all wanted to meet with us earlier today, but we had a briefing with not only the chief, all the chiefs, commanders, and those involved in the event that took place on December the 24th. So, with us today, of course, Chief Simpson, Assistant Chief Garcia, Assistant Chief Markle, Commander Frese, and Commander Escalante, who oversees the CID division. So today, Chief Simpson will be speaking about the event and kind of run down a little timeline for y'all and answer as many questions as we can regarding the event. Due to the investigation, there'll be some things that we can't share. So this time, Chief Simpson will brief everybody.
All right. Thank you, Mike. First of all, let me wish you all a late Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. It's unfortunate that we're here to talk about this event today. First off, Corpus Christi Police Department certainly values life above property, and this makes this a very difficult issue for us as a department. Our hearts and prayers go out to the suspect who offered resistance and to some point was aggressive to members of his family and his neighborhood and resisted demands and commands from our officers, which was a direct result of this use of deadly force from our officers. So our hearts and prayers certainly go out to that family. We also have concerns about our officers. You know, we don't come to work with the idea that we're going to have to utilize deadly force as a result of citizen or suspect resistance, but we often know that that's part of the job. So we ask the community to join us as we deal with our own officers and the emotions that go along with that, with having to take someone's life. What I want to do is go down or go through a timeline as Captain Annalise indicated. I think that we'll be able to release certainly more than what you have. If there are questions, I have people here that can answer. Obviously, I know more than what I'm going to be able to say. That's why I've got my safety nets here that can certainly keep me on task without divulging things that I should not divulge. So on December 24th, 2013, at about 11:17 p.m., our dispatch center received a call from a residence in the 4100 block of Herndon in reference to a disturbance that involved an intoxicated husband. At 11:28, calls to our 911 dispatch center indicated that shots were being fired in the area of 4100 block of Herndon. At 11:29 p.m., another call indicated that the suspect's girlfriend ran to a neighbor's home for help. Officers were dispatched to the location as our dispatch call center received or continued to receive multiple calls about the disturbance of a man running around the neighborhood, shooting at neighbors, shooting at his girlfriend, and just being disruptive to many people in that neighborhood. At 11:33 p.m., Senior Officer Enrique Roman and Recruit Officer Kathy McAllister, who were riding as two-officer unit, arrived to the area of 4110 Herndon Street. At the same time, almost simultaneously, Senior Officer Adam Villarreal arrived at that location. As the officers approached the residence, they were met near the street by one of the victims, who asked the officer to remove the suspect, Michael Rosales, date of birth 1/10/1969, from the home. At that time, Rosales came out of the home and into the front yard holding a gun in both hands, so he had two separate guns. Officers took cover behind vehicles parked nearby and ordered him to drop the weapons and get on the ground. Rosales fired his weapons at the officers. The three officers responded to the resistance by challenging Rosales and informing him or commanding him to drop the weapons. In their response, certainly they returned fire. Rosales fell to the ground But at this point, the fight wasn't over. He still had both guns in his hand and he responded to officers by shooting again. While Rosales was on the ground, our officers responded to that resistance and fired again, all 3 officers. At that point, when the threat was neutralized, officers began CPR on Rosales until the medical units arrived. In fact, one of our officers had what we had a go pack. If you guys remember anything about that, we certainly took those from our we requested from crime control, and we received go packs, and they came in handy at that particular time while they were issuing or providing CPR. Rosales was transported to Memorial, where he died later. Once the scene was clear, investigators located 2 handguns where Rosales has fallen to the ground. Both of those weapons were loaded. Our forensic investigators located a vehicle that was hit by gunfire, which at this point we believe that those bullets came from Rosales. Indications from our forensics team was that each of our officers fired 2 rounds apiece. That's what we know right now. Of course, this is still under investigation, so we believe that our officers, all 3, fired 2 rounds apiece. We do have in-car camera video. It was made available to my staff and I this morning. After we reviewed the videos, we now see that statements made by the officers, as well as independent witnesses that witnessed what happened, that everything that our officers reported certainly is memorialized by those videos. We had consultation with the District Attorney's Office this morning, and it is his opinion that we should not release that at this time. So we're not able to release the video based on advice and consultation with the District Attorney's Office. The criminal investigation is ongoing, as is our procedural investigation through our Internal Affairs Division. An autopsy will be performed after our Christmas and New Year's holidays in order to ascertain definite cause of death. We're going to await those results. Michael Rosales has 1 conviction for family violence assault. It was in 2003 out of Galveston County. He also has 1 arrest for family violence out of our city, and that occurred in 2008. Senior Officer Adam Villarreal is a 23-year veteran of our department. Senior Officer Enrique Roman is a 9-year veteran of our department. And Recruit Officer Katha McAllister has less than 1 year. She was one of the lady recruits that we have talked about, and she was in training and she was riding with Senior Officer Roman. All 3 officers at this point are on what we call paid administrative leave, which is part of our policy and protocol in order to give them time to decompress. They also will have a series of interviews with some of our staff psychologists, and then we'll bring them back slowly. They won't be gone long, because it's my belief, get back on that horse and ride, and certainly they have support here within our department from members who have gone through this same sort of thing, and so we would love for them to come back just as quick as they can. In my view, this is a very unfortunate situation. All indications from what I have right now is that our officers responded very professionally. They did the job that they were trained to do. Again, it's unfortunate, and certainly our hearts go out to that family, and we want you guys and the public to join us as we bring our officers back, because we're certainly in prayer for them too, because it's not, that's something that we don't want to do, is to have to utilize deadly force. So with that, I'll take questions if you have.
Were any of the officers grazed by any of the bullets?
Thanks for asking. Our officers are fine. They did not get hit, nor did anything ricochet and cause them any injury or harm. My greatest concern now is their emotional stability, to make sure that they're okay. And from everything, I talked to them that night, and from everything that I've gathered, well, not that night, I'm sorry, the day after, on Christmas Day, I spoke with them. They seem to be doing well, but officers are officers, and they don't want to display all of their emotions at once. So I'm certainly in prayer that everything stays the way that it seems with it.
So were there any other injuries or property damage other than that one car you mentioned?
Yeah, we had the bullet holes in the one car that I know of. Outside of that, we're not getting any reports of any other injury. And incidentally, our officers canvassed that block, knocking on doors to make sure that everybody was okay. Because what we like to do is account for all of those rounds. And so at this point, we're of the belief that we have.
How many persons were inside of that house that he lived in?
No. From what I understand, and you guys yell at me if I start, there was a young 20-something-year-old person, a male, which was part of the reason for the disturbance that night. Not that he was doing anything wrong, but we do know that Mr. Rosales had been drinking the entire day, mostly the entire day. And when you have people who are intoxicated, the very smallest of things tends to set them off. We believe that that is the case here, and then we know that a girlfriend was there and possibly at least another couple.
Were there any children?
From what I know, just a 23-year-old young man that was there.
So that was his home?
It was a friend's home, for what I understand. They had been going through some issues, both financially and emotionally, and so they were allowed to stay with friends. And so that was not their home, but they were being allowed to stay there.
Who did those two guns belong to?
That I'm not sure, and that'll all come out in investigation, but we believe at least one of them was his, and maybe the other belonged to members of who owned the house.
Anything you want to say to people who are out, on the holidays, they're drinking, what should,
Yeah, we always preach, think it out. If you're going to drink, I'm not a person that will make the minds of grown people, but we ask you to designate a person not only to drive you, but also to be able to intercede when things go wrong. We know that the holidays, frankly, are not always joyful occasions for everybody. Sometimes people go through emotional loss, or they have this emotional roller coaster through the holiday season. And we ask that while you're enjoying the festivities, to pay close attention to people and listen to the things that they say, because maybe you could key in on somebody who's struggling. We also know historically this period of time, it's actually a deadly time for officers. So we always tell them to be vigilant when they're dealing particularly with items of domestic disturbance. If you look across the country, particularly in Texas, it seems that we always have a uptick in officer injuries and officers being killed in the line of duty during this time. And so we ask our people to remain vigilant, because people are going through this emotional roller coaster, and limit your alcohol. The people who drink, our assumption is that they're old enough to drink, but sometimes you can just limit that or abstain totally, so that you just don't succumb to a lot of different emotions and do things that probably you wouldn't do if you were sober.
Do you know about how many officer-involved shootings have occurred with the CCPD in the last 5 years?
Since I've been here, this is my second time addressing the media. We had the one SWAT call-out that occurred on Salem, I believe. And so since I've been here, this is the second one within the last 5 years. I don't know that anybody really knows that. It's just, so at least 2.
Okay.
From my understanding, there was reports of shootings happening before the officers arrived.
Correct.
Was that from in, outside, or both?
Yeah, I think mostly outside,
Outside.
yeah.
So happening, he was chasing her, or?
Correct. Yeah, so we believe that most of those gunshots occurred outside. Again, we're still reviewing everything, but from what we know right now, it all occurred outside.
Can you give us a little more details on the procedure that these officers will face during this internal investigation?
Yeah, we work really close with our POA, and you know, the POA, for obviously reasons, they will show up, and our officers have the opportunity to consult with attorneys and things like that prior to, you know, just to make sure that, you know, it's a self-preservation thing. And, you know, people may criticize that, but that's the way it is. Okay, and so, and they have their right by contract. Peer support shows up. Certainly our shoot team through our criminal investigations division show up. We have members of our command staff that show up. I fight the urge not to show up, because when I have a tendency to show up, then people, you know, and I was the same way, they want to brief the chief as opposed to doing what we know that they do well. And so I'm on the phone getting briefings for the most part, but the necessary professional people show up. One component that we're going to add that we discussed this morning was from a training perspective. And so from now on, we're going to assign somebody from our training unit to go out and assess to make sure that we do things that are tactically correct, and that we see if we can gain improvements on how we process and deal with these things in the future. So we have a bona fide procedural method of people who show up to the scene, and that occurred on the 24th.
Okay, so it's not as a result of this incident?
No. This department does things really well. They did that before I got here. The one component that we're going to add is that training piece, which I think is going to be important as we move forward. But the men and the women of this department they responded well to this. I think that when you look at it in the professional realm, from every appearance that I'm seeing, procedures were followed. Officers did what they were trained to do, and they did it well. The unfortunate thing is that in response to someone who has been inebriated and drinking all day, in response to aggressive behavior towards others, and then in response to resistance that was brought forth towards these officers, the end result was you know, they reverted back to their training. It was really quick, you know, less than 15 seconds, and they absolutely responded in a manner in which they needed to. And as I mentioned, it was unfortunate that somebody wound up losing their lives.
The dash camera was able to capture everything, and it clears everything.
That's why I can speak to you with authority, because everything that I mentioned to you is memorialized on that video now. There were probably 10 cars out there. I haven't seen all 10 dash cam videos, which is one of the reasons why we won't release, you know, I'm 99.9% sure that there's nothing out there that will show anything different. But I'm going to hold out with that last 1/10 of a percentage that, you know, some camera will show something different. But we're comfortable with where we are. And in consultation with our district attorney's office, I think the right decision is to just kind of wait. My desire and my history is to release that stuff, but I'm going to respect the culture here, and we'll move forward. And at some point, it'll be available after all the investigations and grand jury settings and all of that stuff. They're set.
So there's going to be no other agency investigating, but it's just going to be an internal investigation?
It will be the district attorney's office along with CCPD, and I got to tell you, you know, but for, you know, Department of Justice, civil rights style violations, you know, we'll do that when we need to. But I'm really confident in our team here that we can police ourselves. And I don't say that lightly. I say that based on the little bit of history I have with this department. I've seen them investigate our own. I've seen them make cases and arrest members of this department. And so I have no qualms or no issues with us doing this investigation alongside our district attorney. And I think that the best possible end result is going to come of this. And we, as a community, can be confident that will be done thoroughly.
All right.
Okay, guys?
All right, y'all
Thank you
stick
very much.
around, I got something for y'all, if y'all stick around.